Before you hear this conversation, I want you to listen to underneath the success story you're about to hear. Todd Krause lost his corporate finance job right as the world was shutting down in 2020. Within days, he found a cleaning business for sale, bought it, and eventually grew it into a $4 million business. But the growth did not come from Todd becoming the center of every decision. It actually came from the opposite. He walked into a business with a toxic culture, high turnover, frustrated staff, and customers who were not staying as long as they could have. Then he changed the way business operated. He stopped leading through every correction and consequence. He started building ownership, responsibility, dignity, and reward into the daily systems of the company. His managers started solving problems without him. His employees started taking pride in their work. Customers stayed longer and reviews improved. He reduced his cost and his profit increased. That is the part of the business we do not talk about enough. A business does not become stronger because the founder holds tighter. A business becomes stronger when the founder builds the systems that let other people rise inside of it. This conversation is about culture, systems, succession, ownership, and what happens when the human part of a business is treated as operational intelligence. I'm Kathy Baldwin, and this is the Finally Feeling podcast. Let's get started. Welcome to the Finally Feeling podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Baldwin. And here at the Finally Feeling, we talk about business from a whole different perspective. We talk about how to bring the human in, as well as being able to systematize and bring that, what I call the Finally Feeling, into business. Today, my guest is Todd Krause. Todd spent years in corporate finance, managing billions of dollars in assets, but right around March 2020, right as the world was shutting down for COVID, Todd found himself without a job. Within the next few days, he purchased a business and turned it into a $4 million empire. And in today's conversation, we're going to extract the nuggets of gold that made him such a success today. Thank you so much, Todd, for being with me today. I cannot wait to dive in.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Kathy. It's really such an honor to be here.
Oh, perfect. So what I want to go to first is that moment. So many times people leave corporate not of their own accord. And all of a sudden they're left with, who am I and how do I move forward? And you took that worker mentality and turned it into an entrepreneurial spirit. Can you showcase what that moment was like and how you transitioned?
It was not one of my happier moments. It was the second time in my career I've been let go. I think maybe I'm blessed it was only twice. Some people suffer through it a lot more than that. But I knew things weren't going well. Senior managers made the trip to Indianapolis to read me the riot act on my birthday of all things back on February 20th in the morning. And then my team celebrated in the afternoon, and I'm the one with the sad face because I just knew things were not headed in a great direction. Then all of a sudden, they showed up Friday morning, March 6th, and I got called into a conference room, told my job was ending, and I got that whole perp walk thing that HR is so good at doing, straight out the door. Somebody else will collect your coat and everything else from the desk. Don't worry about it. Hopefully they remember the pictures and whatever personal things are sitting on your desk at the same time.
Yeah.
So that happened at 11:30 a.m. and I got home shortly afterward. Indianapolis is not a large city. Commute home was maybe 10 minutes. And I had to break the news to the family. At that time, my children were, well, son was 18, daughter was 16, had a house, had a mortgage, had two kids to support. And it was just, what do I do now? I did what I always do every single time I need my next opportunity. I, I put multiple irons in the fire. What is my next corporate opportunity? What could I build or create? And what's available to buy?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that. So you basically took your opportunities and turned it into a spreadsheet analysis.
Mentally, you could say that, although I never really did actually create a spreadsheet. And then, of all things, it was only about 10 days later, and I spotted this cleaning business for sale on a business broker website right in our backyard. Had a decent size, produced a decent income. So I'm showing this to my wife. I'm going, look at this. There's a great opportunity. Well, after years in corporate finance, her reaction was, a cleaning business? Seriously? Well, with that glowing recommendation for my idea, of course I went ahead and bought it.
Well, there is a mental leap from corporate visual success
Well,
to people seeing the product and not the opportunity.
just she did after we bought it. The tune was a little different. Now she's making it positive. She goes, a cleaning business. But you're right, there is a leap there. And if you just look at the resume with all of its corporate lingo on there and the titles, it would seem like I spent my life behind a big mahogany desk and had hundreds of people reporting to me. I really was on the alternative side of the finance world, working with hedge funds and private equity and venture capital. And I did a lot of operational accounting and finance. So inside of each of those roles, we were touching all of these individual businesses, ranging from bottled water vending, alarm vending, oil and gas, multifamily apartment complexes, and they were all businesses of various sizes. So it wasn't just sitting there crunching the numbers in a high finance way. And that gave
I,
a lot of the background that led to what I did with the cleaning business.
I love that, because one of the things that I do with my clients when I'm helping them figure out what should be systematized and what should be humanized and extracting that knowledge is being able to see the discombobulated, unrelated opportunities of a past that turn into a brand new opportunity. I bet you saw that in all of those different businesses that you were evaluating for hedge fund companies, correct? You would have been able to see the opportunity and the extraction of the human in all these different models.
I did, and that was one of the common themes throughout is how they treated people. Did they see them as a complete person? Did they show them respect and dignity? Did they value them? The ones that did succeeded. The ones that didn't experienced high turnover and eventually failed.
Wow. So you have always appreciated the unique and absolute requirement of humans being in a business.
I have. It really wasn't until recently that I was able to articulate that. I just did it. And I always protected my team and the people around me, and they always rose to the occasion and helped me solve problems. But then more recently, people started saying, well, Todd, how does what you do, why does it work? It seems so simple. And it took me a while to finally be able to put it into words, what I was doing. And a lot of that happened as I started winning Franchisee of the Year awards. The first one I didn't even know about, to be honest. It sounds funny and strange, but it's true. A couple of people from corporate that I knew had come out to the office. They said, "Well, we're making the rounds and visiting all the franchisees in this region." Stopped by the office for an afternoon, clicked a bunch of photographs. That was around Thanksgiving. In January, they called 22 and said, "We want you to fly out to San Diego to accept an award from the International Franchise Association." I said, "Award? What award? I don't remember applying for anything. Take care of that for you."
Wow, what a huge compliment and achievement.
It was because of the culture we created inside the walls of the business. And they loved it. So if February, I find myself standing in front of the largest audience I had ever stood in front of my whole life. But it's at that point in my life, I'm still going, well, it's my managers. They did all the work. It's my employees. They did all the work. And then later, I won the Franchisee of the Year for operational success from the Cleaning Authority, because I own a Cleaning Authority franchise. So we're at the convention. I'm doing the same thing. It's my managers. It's my employees.
Okay. You're downplaying your role in this. And I need to call it out because as somebody who does friction gap bottleneck analysis for all of my clients, I can tell you right now the number one thing that gets in the way of a founder-led business is the founder.
That is correct. And you're not the first one to say that to me.
And you stepped out of the way and allowed your team to shine and gave them credit.
It did. And I really valued everything that they did. I couldn't have done it without them. But the one thing that people finally got me to realize is they said, "Todd, they wouldn't have been able to do this if you didn't show them how."
Or remove yourself from the equation, correct?
Right.
Okay, so I want an example of this because, for example, so many times when I'm doing these audits, and I will see that a founder wants that control, and so they funnel every decision through them. Did you hand autonomy and responsibility to other decision makers, or did you keep that to yourself?
No, I handed it to them. And I explicitly handed it to them in a conversation I had on Monday morning, April 26, 2021. But you're right. Founders, they have a tendency to want to do this and hang on to everything. You become the bottleneck. If everything has to go through you, your business only grows to the point where you stop being able to hang on to it anymore, because then things fall through the cracks. Phone calls aren't answered, emails aren't returned, customers and clients start to become disappointed, and you stop growing.
Yeah. Yes, I call that that you can only scale to the capacity of the founder.
And when the founder has a weakness in an area, that becomes a weakness in the business. The founder is literally the business.
Yes. I have my happy shoes on. That right there shows me exactly why you won those awards. So tell me, how did your team receive this? Because from what I remember about your story, you took a business that was successful enough for you to buy it, but you exponentially grew it through this methodology, correct?
I did. In fact, in hindsight, looking back, it's a little bit amazing that the prior owner was able to grow it to the level and size that he did. When I arrived at toxic, it was actually a toxic culture. The turnover was high with the customers and the staff. Morale was low. It was hitting one of those ceilings where it just wasn't going to go any further unless something changed.
How did you recognize that when you first saw it?
Well, they were busy. Every morning would start with the managers lecturing team by team by team. You did this wrong, you broke that, you forgot to do this. Get out there and do it the right way today. And there was no joy there.
No.
I ended up just saying, stop, please stop. Don't do that anymore. Stop saying no, don't, and threatening consequences. I said, tell them what the customers ask for. Tell them what we need them to do. And then tell them what the rewards are for doing it. Now we're connecting rewards directly with what our customers ask us to do. And if you think customers, owners, managers, staff, we're creating an alignment there. Imperfect, but we're creating an alignment that typically doesn't exist in many organizations. We had to live through this skeptical period where cleaners were going, do they really mean that?
Is this a trap?
Yeah. Are they making fun of us? Is this a joke? But after those first couple of teams got bonuses, suddenly everybody wanted in on it. The whole culture just did a 180 in 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks, literally 6 weeks. And it ripped down all the signs that said no and don't. Think about it. In the world we live in, almost every sign says no or don't and tells you that there's some consequences if you do.
Yeah, no parking, no littering, don't drink and drive. Yes, everything is negatively based out in our cultural world.
I simply said to the managers, you can flip it 180 degrees and tell them what they should do or what you want them to do. And so up went the positive signage. I did have to, for a period of time, pull my managers aside and say, oh, we need to talk. The prior owner has left the building. We don't do that anymore. We don't treat people that way. I said, treat them with dignity and respect. Lift them up to the level we want them to be at.
There's a song that just popped into my head. My name's not Lisa. My name is Julie. That's what it sounds like you were doing, is that old culture has gone. And a founder can choose to do that. It doesn't need to happen with a change of ownership. They can take your methodology and at one point say, okay, I'm going to change directions right here, right now. Correct?
Yeah, just say, I decided. It's your business. It's that simple. I decided that starting tomorrow, we're doing things differently. There's a certain period of where they're trying to figure it out. In my case, because I was new, they didn't have a lot of experience with me. So the only thing they had to compare me to was, guess what? The old guy. I had to demonstrate to them that I wasn't the old guy who just left. I was different and I had different priorities, different values.
Absolutely. But I really want us to hone in on the fact, because I do these diagnostics and these audits and showcase what is possible, that at any point in time when you have new information, you can make new decisions. And you can change culture and you can change priorities and you can remove bottlenecks and friction and gaps, correct?
Absolutely, you can. And not just feel good stuff. There's real math and real P&L behind this. You get We get 5 things out of doing it this way. Our staff stays longer, so we have lower turnover in hiring. We retain knowledge, we retain experience. They tell friends and family what a great place it is to work. We've got people literally working in, asking to apply every week. We spend no money advertising for new employees. We have a wait list. Imagine that. The customers notice because the staff cares. They literally care about the work they do. So the customers stay longer. They refer other customers. That's number 4. And then we get number 5. This is the big one. Free advertising. You cannot beat Google reviews with pictures and people who write paragraphs and say, oh, Maria and Carmen did an amazing job. I love when they come. I look forward to it every time. Those type of reviews sell your business to the next customer.
You just described, I knew we were going to have a good interview when I first met you, but you are like clicking on everything that is of a priority to me in my business. But the main thing you're talking about is that we live and function in an ecosystem, and everything affects everything else. And being able to showcase that when you remove yourself as the bottleneck from the business, put the power and decision making and ability for your employees to own the process, and then allow that to feed itself in and out.
It has. And I watched the managers. They were cleaners at one time. Yes, 2 of them had already been promoted to managers when I took over, and 3 more we promoted afterward. And they went through these growth levels. The first level manager said, Todd, we have a problem. What do we do? I would list off a couple of possibilities. We discuss it. We decide. They take one. Then they reach the next level. Todd, we have a problem. We think we could use one of these 2 ways to solve it. Well, okay, let's talk about why we might choose 1 or 2. So they've bringing solutions. Then we got to the 3rd level. Todd, we had a problem, but we took care of it, and this is what we did. Well, there's a 4th level beyond that. Silence. And then occasionally it's, Todd, we had a problem, we took care of it. It's a type of problem where we think you would want to know. They're just solving problems in the business.
Okay, so this is really important data, because these problems can be systematized into solutions. Is that what they brought you once it had the solution and they'd resolved it? Do they come to you so that you could systematize it across the business?
Actually, they systematized it.
Oh, tell me more.
What we created was the structure of what are our values. When we share values, when you and I share values, I can trust your decision-making process to be in alignment with what the business needs.
Oh, yeah. So you put at the top of the alignment chart the client.
Absolutely.
And as somebody who believes that sales is the absolute data point for everything, positive, negative, everything, when you put the client at the top, you have it going through there.
So if you're going to make it a pyramid, the client sits at the top, the owner sits below the client, managers below the owner, and then the staff fill in the lower levels. But you actually, in some ways, flip that around, because when we take care of the staff, they take care of the client. So
Yes.
here's the things we do, types of things we do to take care of the client. We have gone out on winter days to push them out of ditches when their cars have slid into ditches. We've changed tires for them. When a team's car is broken down, we've driven them around from house to house to house so they can clean and earn a paycheck while we get their car fixed for them. We provide meals during the holidays. We have holiday parties, celebrate birthdays, celebrate pregnancies and new additions to the family.
I love it.
Okay,
I'm going to ask you a leading question because I know the answer to it because we've talked about it. How did you base your reward system?
We based it on the quality of their results. So quite simply, when Mrs. Jones tells us through our app that we did a good job, money on their next paycheck, not at the end of the month, not at the end of the quarter, end of the year, a known amount of money on their next paycheck. That happens to be $10. When Mrs. Jones leaves us a Google review, because our app will say, oh, we're glad you liked the work we did. Would you consider leaving us a Google review? $15 more on their paycheck per person. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we are talking about people who scrub toilets for a living, and their typical paycheck is $500 to $800 a week. They are in and out of between 20 and 25 homes every week. Now, if 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 customers give them a good job rating, leave a Google review, they can add as much as $100, $150 a week to their paycheck. That is life-changing money for people who are typically at the bottom of our economic ladder, living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, but I need to add something to that because there is human psychology in what you have done. By instead of it being at the end of a quarter or whatever, there is a reason that original cash registers had a bell into them. Do you know what that is? Do you know that story?
I don't, but enlighten me, please.
There's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system that wants to be right. And so we can train it like that experiment Pavlov's dog. And so when the cash register dings, it becomes a actual physical reaction in the brain that says, ooh, dopamine hit. And so when you were doing those small little rewards over and over again, you're training the brain to seek out those positive experiences by the repetition of the reward.
I hadn't thought of it that way. The direction I was thinking of it is, in a world where we as employees often have very little control over our benefits and our compensation, this gives them some actual control over how much compensation they earn. It's paying them to care, literally what we're doing. Because now they care. They're not just, I'm living for Friday and a paycheck. Now it's, I want Mrs. Jones to like my work. They're taking pride in their work.
Yes.
So I'll tell this to business owners and they'll say things like, oh, but that sounds so expensive. And I say, well, no, actually it's not. It's just the opposite. Our operating expenses have dropped more than 8% annually since taking over the company. And we're currently at a 4 million plus in revenue every year. That's more than $320,000 more profit every year. So what I would say to you as business owners, if you don't know what to do with $320,000, I'm pretty sure Kathy and I would be able to help you with a few ideas. Or we'll just take it off your hands.
I love that because what you just showcased And this is happening in real time in the world right now. I'm hearing time after time of major corporations laying off employees, trying to replace them with AI technology or something because they're afraid of investing in the humans. But those who invest in human labor and human experience and intelligence and ownership and innovation, all of these other things actually reap rewards. You reduced your operating costs, you reduced your retention costs, your client acquisition costs. I can't even, your marketing dollars. I mean, all of the cost savings by putting the investment where it belongs into
It's,
humans.
I call it the unfair advantage. In a world that doesn't treat employees like they're valuable and doesn't make them feel seen or heard, it's your unfair advantage to just go out there and do the opposite of what your competition is doing. Because think about it, we all have access to the same tools, technology, and AI. And most of us are already using the latest and the greatest that's on there. So those are like our core.
Mm-hmm.
You wrap around this the cultural element. And when you get your people to bring their heart to work and care about the work they do, all of a sudden, instead of just doing work at this level, they're doing work up here at this other level, this much higher level. We're not asking them to do more work. We're just asking them to care when they do work.
Yes. So I need to ask you, why are you sharing this knowledge with me and the audience and all of the speaking engagements that I know you're out there doing, instead of capitalizing in on it and just buying more and more franchises and cornering the market on this? Why are you sharing this incredible knowledge?
I'm sharing it because, first of all, I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference that's bigger than just inside the walls of my business. I'd like to see the world look at people and treat them differently. There are some select owners, smaller subset of owners that will latch on to these types of ideas and use them. It's not typically what happens.
No.
And as we speak, my managers are actually overtime purchasing the cleaning company from me. It goes back to that conversation on Monday, April 26, 2021. That was a day when I had to let go of a manager who was stealing from the business. He was removing the cash payment that the customer made in the system, issuing them a credit, so everything looked like it zeroed out, putting the cash in his pocket. And then my other two managers alerted me to that. So I checked system logs and really took a close look, and sure enough, that was happening. I talked with the other two managers ahead of time, told them that I would plan to terminate the general manager who was doing this. They assured me that they were ready and set to take over in his absence. So we had a meeting in the conference room, and I presented him with the system logs. I just slid him across the table and said, look at that. Where's all this money going? I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And I handed him two letters. One was a voluntary termination, and the other one was, I fire you, theft, stealing, fraud, falsification of company records, and a couple more things. He said, oh, I didn't do it. So I started slowly signing the termination letter, and then he quickly signed the resignation letter, collected his things, and was gone. And the other two managers were sitting there with this. They looked as though a bomb had gone off in the conference room. But that's when I told them what I needed from them. I said, I need you to run my business and care about it like an owner. And my thank you to you is I will create a path to ownership for you. So over time, it will become their company. And then I told them about my illnesses and why I needed the help.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming. One of the things that I talk about in my books and this podcast, as well as everything else, is that as a founder-led business, we have a responsibility to build succession planning into our businesses, because the trust that we are asking our clients to put in us by providing that service, product, whatever it is, we're responsible for delivering that. You just described that in such a beautifully profound way that I've never heard before.
It's become a symbiotic relationship. They support me and help me, but I'm giving them a huge thank you at the same time. And they're buying the business a piece at a time, over time. And it's slowly transferring from me to them, and it'll be theirs going forward.
Wow. What an amazing example you have been. I know you purchased a franchise, and that's what you said is the head office payment.
Yes.
Tell me, what lessons have the franchise company, because a franchise is basically they've systematized a business model and now you are buying the system. You took their system and elevated it. How have they extracted that into their own business?
They have. It's always been my hope that they would really, really extract more than they have. I've done webinars for them. We regularly host other franchise owners and or their managers to come and see how we do things and what makes it work. I will periodically send my managers to other offices, and they don't always come back saying they learned something new to do. Sometimes they come back and say, we learned what not to do. So there's learning that's going back and forth. They've started using my office as an example office when they are showcasing what a cleaning authority franchise looks like for new owners and the brokers who sell franchises.
So you raised the benchmark.
Ultimately, we did, yes. We took what they gave us and then layered on the whole cultural side and fine-tuned a lot of the operating things that they gave us.
Wow.
Franchises can vary wildly in how much you get. It can be as little as a logo and a brand name and maybe some operating manuals, or it can be as robust as having training programs, business coaches, and more built into it. So franchises, you've got to peel back the layers when you say franchise, because they are not all the same.
No, but when I'm referring to the difference between a founder-led business that creates something from scratch versus, and I always use franchise as an example of how a business can be systematized, and once it's systematized, it should remove the founder from being the bottleneck and the friction and gaps of a business.
It will, only if the founder takes those additional steps to not be the business. Because even inside of a franchise, the founders or the owners of the franchise can still be these type of people who hang on to everything. Every decision has to cross their desk. All the scheduling goes through them. All the payroll goes through them. You have an advantage in the franchise that they give you branding. They give you name recognition, hopefully, advertising, and some sort of an operating system. You don't have to figure all of that out yourself.
Yes. But you added some secret sauce.
We added to it, and we still run the cleaning, the rotation system that the authority brands created for the cleaning authority. We still use the types of chemicals and tools that they recommend, but we added to it, and we added a lot of things to it. And a lot of it was just how we do the day-to-day, how we manage the business. And
So
those areas, they have suggestions, but they don't tell you have to do it a certain way.
So tell me, how are you implementing continuous improvement and corrective action with root cause analysis to continue to systematize expansion, growth, and even creating a better experience?
We do that, we don't use that language, but it's happening just in how we get things done. It started with me saying, okay, terminations are here. What would it take to bring terminations down to this level? Or how about down to this level? How do we get complaints are at this level? How do we bring it down here and then down there? So I kept tightening the metrics a little at a time over time. And there were a couple of times that the managers said, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do that. And I simply said, well, we always have more control than we think to bring down terminations or bring down complaints. They thought about it for a while. We had a few conversations, and guess what? They started doing it. They started figuring out ways to bring down terminations, bring down complaints. What is critical about terminations are, instead of replacing customers, you're adding customers. So your revenue actually grows faster. And they started taking a look at, well, how are we inspecting? What type of tools and chemicals are we using? Could we make adjustments there? How are we interacting with the customer if the customer is home when we're cleaning? How are we talking to them? There's the whole thing that drives a business could be looked at like a coin. On the one side is the owner, and the owner wants it to be efficient, use the fewest resources possible, but be effective, deliver everything we promised. Flip it over, the customer wants quality, and they want that quality every time. They want consistency, and then they want a third thing. When they need to talk to somebody, they want customer service, and that's not a chatbot. They don't want to talk to a machine. They don't want to have to pick from which bucket is my concern in bucket 1, 2, or 3, like some of the large companies who won't let you talk to a person until you pick one of those buckets. And when you say, my problem doesn't fit in the bucket, what do I do now? So I always viewed it as technology and AI should be supportive. And then the people and the relationships should be the face of the business.
I agree. One of my favorite ways of utilizing KPIs, key performance indicators, is to amass the complaints, the objections, and really analyze it. You have shown a firefighter's mentality. The only thing I can think of is that you ran to the problem instead of trying to hide from the criticisms or the objections or the problems. How did you manage to do that without having to fight your own ego? Because people are problem adverse. They don't want to know about the problems. But that's where the opportunities lie.
It is. That's true. And once you set your ego aside and you take this learner mentality and say, there's data here. I can figure out how to make us better. And if we're better, then we get larger. And if we get larger, then we have more profit. And that's exciting if you're a business owner. When you see it through that lens, then it's easy to take the ego and say, oh, no, park it over here. I really want to know what's going on here. And I would always challenge the managers. I would say, okay, look through the complaints. I want to know what patterns there are. Mrs. Smith complaining that we missed a baseboard in her house might be a one-off complaint. But are a number of customers saying the same thing? If they are, we need to look at how we're cleaning. We need to look at how we're inspecting. What can we learn from it? And I just kept saying that over and over and over again. Now the managers themselves are telling me what patterns they're noticing in different areas of the business.
Ooh, so you're training others to see the pattern recognition.
That's always been something I did. Is I've noticed I've always been a big observer of patterns.
And for someone who does not have that skill set, you can systematize it by feeding it into some sort of accountability system. That is a beautiful example of how we can integrate AI by saying, you know, this is trending up, it's trending down, you know, here's some opportunities, here's some patterns.
That is so true and so quick. Prior to AI, I would say print them all out in a sheet and then off to the side, mark what the key concerns are, and then go up and down that list and say, what do we notice? What's appearing over and over again? Now we can print it to a file and feed it into AI of our choice and ask AI to do that.
Yes. Yes, if we are able to remove the founder from being afraid of the data and know what data points we need in order to deliver that finally feeling I talk about, that feeling of finally, which is what you're trying to give your clients, correct? That when they come home every day after your team has been there, they have that massive sense of relief that their home is safe and well taken care of, and the burden has been removed from them. All of these things that they are looking for is way more than scrubbing a toilet.
It is. So we move the focus from cleaning to serving families, because that's really what we do. If I had to sum up what you just said, for mom and dad and a couple of kids living in a suburban home, which is our bread and butter, typically 4-bedroom houses, 2.5 baths is not uncommon. Mom and dad are working. Kids are going to school and involved in every extracurricular imaginable. Travel sports on top of that.
Yeah.
They don't have time to clean. They don't want to clean. They just want somebody to take that burden from them. They want to come home and know that it was done and done well.
Yes.
So when we do that over and over and over again, we have a successful business, and we've provided service to the community so these people can live the lives that they choose to live.
Okay, so I have to ask you, because you're serving an end user consumer. I'm serving founder-led businesses, and I want them to have that finally feeling and remove that founder dependency and remove the burden of that so that they can live their lives and be with their family and travel and have those extracurricular activities. How has this system that you're developing for clients affected you as a founder?
I've systematized what I did. I've put into documents how I got from point A to point B. I walk founders through it step by step. I don't immediately hit it from the angle of culture, but I come in from the angle of, okay, where does it hurt? Where is the pain? And as we are working through, oftentimes the pain is, I'm not growing as fast as I want to. Where are the customers? As we work through it, I layer in all the cultural things, standardizing the processes, how you communicate with the teams. I just keep layering that in. As they see results from that, they're over time buying into it a step at a time. Dipping the toe in at first, wading in up to the knees as we get deeper into the business, waist deep, and then pretty soon they're take the plunge and they're all in.
But
So
how has that affected you as a founder?
it is very, very gratifying to be able to help other people and to make a difference in their lives and in their business. That has just been the most wonderful reward.
But is it giving you time and space and energy and freedom that you're not tied and tethered to your business?
It is. It absolutely does. Here's what my day looks like. I'll spend a few hours in the morning at the cleaning company office. It makes me visible. I'm there in case somebody has a question or something, but I'm not really working on anything for the cleaning company. My managers literally run the business for me. I'm working on the consulting business, which has two sides: public speaking, where I teach all of this from the stage, or the actual consulting side of it, where I work either one-on-one or in small groups with founders or founders and their management team.
Wow. Todd, you are such an amazing example of what happens when we invest in people, when we systematize the repeatable and create a foundational structure that absolutely supports the human innovation and creativity and ownership and the relationship and the decision making, and you've put all of that into your business, and you just showcased how it affected your life, but also how you can now have the freedom to build additional businesses and grow your own ecosystem. I am so impressed with every one of the founding principles that I talk about all the time, how you are showcasing them in every aspect of your business.
Oh, thank you so much. That's just glowing praise.
Well, I know why you're an award-winning business owner. And
The big thing is to get
I,
out of your own way and let it happen.
yeah, one of the things that I talk about all the time is how we bring our belief systems, our traumas, our everything that we have as human beings. And if we systematize that into our business, we are repeating it. And you have taken what I can tell is an amazingly beautiful heart and soul, and you've systematized that into your business.
I did. When you say it that way, yes, I did. And it works. Even it takes what technology gives us and puts it on a whole new plane, because businesses wouldn't exist if there weren't people. Wouldn't exist if there weren't customers.
No.
We're starting to forget that in the world we live in when we think AI can do everything for us. We're losing that
I think we're
connection.
starting to remember.
Well, I've seen some articles recently that suggest that we are starting to remember, and that's encouraging.
It is. It is. And that is the entire purpose of this podcast, is to wake people up, remove the founder as a dependency, as a bottleneck, systematize a business so that the human can showcase, and we can stop becoming a slave to a business and instead be living rich, fulfilling lives that brings out the best of us. Todd, I know that you will add so much to the keynote speeches that you go and do. And the coach, you say you're also a business coach.
Yes, correct.
I believe the value you're putting out in the world is incredible, and I encourage people to reach out and find you. How can they do that?
Go to www.silversunconsulting.com. Sun is spelled S-U-N. The About page has my bio. It has my email address and a phone number. That phone number is going to ring right here. I like talking to you, so call me.
Oh, look at that. Even showing another example of the human interaction. I love it. We both serve the power of businesses and human connection in that business. You do it with your audits, and I do it with my diagnostics. I am honored and so happy that you have given us your time, your experience, and your knowledge, and showcased everything that Finally Business System is all about. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me on your show. It's been such an honor.
My pleasure. And for those of you who are a founder-led business and you are feeling the weight of all of the undone and the can't keep up with, and the fears in the middle of the night, I want you to remember what Todd has shared about adding more humanity into your business, and consider reaching out to him or me to help you understand where you might be your own bottleneck and in your own way. Until next time, my name is Kathy Baldwin, and this has been another episode of the Finally Feeling podcast, where you are not the system.
If this conversation had you thinking about the places in your own business where everything still has to come back to you, that is exactly the kind of thing that I look for when I do a business audit for my clients. Most of the time, the problem is not that you are not capable enough. It's actually probably that you are too capable. It's the business has been built in a way that it still depends on you to catch the gaps, smooth over the friction points, remove the bottlenecks, and figure out the roadblocks in real time. That's why this Finally Feeling podcast exists. I want to be able to showcase what it actually looks like when the systems, tools, and automation, when the people and the processes are working for the business instead of quietly trapping the founder inside of it. If you're ready to see where your business is still depending on you in ways that it should not be, you can book your Finally Business Audit at finallybusiness.com. businesssystem.com. I'm Kathy Baldwin. This is another episode of the Finally Feeling podcast.